What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back. As always, thank you for joining me. My name's Paul Brettel. Been some changes, some updates to the Green Bay Packers coaching staff over the last 24 hours or so, so we're going to talk about it today, what you need to know. But first, before we do that, you know what to do. Hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. Find all my work over at ESPNLacrosse.com, including article versions of what we're discussing here today. And my Wisconsin sports fans, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app, all your Wisconsin sports radio needs. Like I said, last 24 hours plus, there's been some news, changes, updates to the Green Bay Packers coaching staff. So we're going to talk about what that all is here today, what you need to know. And let's start with the departure. Linebackers coach, run game coordinator Anthony Campanile is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars to be their defensive coordinator. He was one of, I believe, four reported interviewees for that job title, and obviously impressed earning that role. And Tom Silverstein of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported that the Jaguars were not the only team interested in Campanile. The Penn State Nittany Lions college football level wanted him to be their defensive coordinator. He turned that job down, and had Robert Saleh not decided to go back to San Francisco, had he gotten a head coaching job somewhere, Campanile would have been the 49ers defensive coordinator, is what Tom Silverstein reported. So in high demand, understandably so. Where he's been, he's had a track record of success at that linebacker position at the NFL level. And it's going to be a big loss for this Packers team, a role that they're now going to have to fill. At the end of the day, players make plays, right? They deserve the bulk of the credit for what takes place on the football field. But typically, behind a successful unit, a productive unit, players operating at a high level, there's a good position coach behind it, and that was Campanile. As Matt LaFleur said, and throughout the season, LaFleur, Hafley, very willing to heap praise onto Campanile and the job that he did with those Packers linebackers. LaFleur saying, I think after the Seattle game, he's done a heck of a job, a tremendous job with the Packers linebackers. And again, as the linebacker coach, as the run game coordinator, that's a position group, that's a facet of the defense that was very much elevated during this 2024 season. I mean, we can go through the production from the Packers' individual linebackers, Edgerrin Cooper, and of course, the speed, the versatility that gives a defense. That's going to make your linebacker unit a lot better on its own. But I think what we can look at with Cooper, with Quay Walker, where the coaching component you can really hone in on is the growth that we saw from them over the course of the season, right? Both of those players got better as the season went on. There's, in part, just experience, reps, a comfort level that you're gaining. But I think a lot of that, too, is the coaching that you're getting along the way in emphasizing what you're doing well, how to lean into that element, how to continue to improve upon it, and then what are we not doing well? What do we need to work on? I think that steady progression from those two players, again, they deserve the credit for the production on the field, but I think that's a sign of the coaching that was taking place behind the scenes. And we look at Edgerrin Cooper, I mean, two-time NFC Defensive Player of the Week during this past season. He was the NFC's Rookie of the Month for December. And again, just a ton of splash plays that he made. Quay Walker, as he got adjusted to Hafley's scheme, as he got more comfortable with the Mike linebacker role, was playing some really good football. I think many would say the best football of his career prior to that ankle injury in Seattle in Week 15. There was a 4-game stretch coming out of the bye week leading up into that game where run stops, pressures on the quarterback, yards per catch allowed in coverage. Quay Walker ranked among the best at the linebacker position in each of those categories. He was doing everything, right? Run game, pressure in the quarterback, coverage. Again, we really started to see Quay Walker playing some of his best football. You can look at Eric Wilson when he had to step in as the Mike linebacker on a few occasions this season, just his preparedness level to operate within that role. Isaiah McDuffie, just providing a steady presence, right? If he's your third, fourth linebacker on your defensive unit, you've got a pretty strong linebacker room, and I think that's what we saw from the Packers this season. Again, players deserve the credit, but it's also not a coincidence that in year one with Jeff Hafley, year one with Campanile, that we saw this group as a whole really take off, a position group that for the Packers for a number of years they've dealt with up and down play. And then the run game perspective, again, part of Campanelli's job title with the Packers was linebackers coach and the run game coordinator. And again, the Packers' run defense was the best that it's been in a very long time. They finished third this season in yards per carry allowed, seventh in rushing yards per game, and for the first time since 2009, the Packers allowed fewer than 100 rushing yards per game during this season. And I wrote about that run defense during the latter portion of the season after we had the chance to talk to Campanelli, because he just provided some great insight behind it and just the progression that's part of his teaching when it comes to that, specifically with the linebackers. It starts with your eyes, identifying it, your feet moving in the right direction, your hands, and then finishing violently to make sure that you finish the play appropriately. And I think we saw that too, going back to the teaching component of it. Quay Walker, the sideline to sideline, shooting the gaps, shedding blockers. Edgerrin Cooper as well, obviously, had a number of tackles for loss. There was an instinctiveness that the Packers linebackers, particularly against the run, were really playing with this season. And we can also look at their contributions as pass rushers as well as getting after the quarterback. We all know the Packers' four-man rush struggled to generate steady pressure this season, but as a whole, the Packers defense finished around the middle of the pack in pressure rate, which I'm going to guess, and I mean, I was a little surprised that it was that high, but I think a product of that, or what contributed to that, was the linebacker position. Hafley dialing up blitzes, the simulated pressures to throw some eye candy at the opposing quarterback, at the offensive line, where you maybe send the middle linebacker, but you have one of the defensive tackles dropping back into coverage, right? Just to mix it up, show the offensive line something different to try to get after the quarterback. So again, Campanelli, his linebackers, I think they played an important factor in that element as well. At the end of the day, Jeff Hafley was the defensive coordinator, is a defensive coordinator. The defense, what we saw, that's his vision, right? The game plans that the Packers put together on a weekly basis based on the opponent. Of course, Hafley's getting insight from everyone, but that's his vision for what that game plan needs to be. It's up to the position coaches to then deliver that. They're spending the most time with their players throughout the week, right? It's not, Jeff Hafley as the CEO, so to speak, of the defensive side of the ball. He has to bounce around, right? He has to a number of different balls in the air that he's juggling. But the position coaches, they are with those players throughout the course of the week. The film room, the meeting rooms, the practice field. And again, what Hafley's vision is for the defense as a whole, what his vision is on a weekly basis for what the game plan needs to be like, it's up to those position coaches to deliver on that, to spread that message and make sure that the standard, again, in the film room, the meeting room, the practice field, technique fundamentals, is all being upheld. And again, I think that's the production speaks for itself. The play of the linebacker position speaks for itself, that Campanelli did an excellent job in that regard. And again, replacing him, not going to be easy. Now, I think one candidate potentially in-house as well is Sean Duggan. Who was the assistant linebackers coach this year. Hafley has a history with him. He was I believe Boston College's linebackers coach when Jeff Hafley was the head coach there. He came over with Hafley last season and again filled that assistant linebackers coach role. So we'll see if Duggan's an option. We'll see if the Packers look outside of the organization for someone to bring in. But again, it's going to be a big loss for this Packers team. Again, at a position where we saw a major turnaround this season, the run game coordinator role that Campanelli took on. And again, we went through the numbers. We saw it with our eyes. Very much improved play in that regard. And it's something that they're going to now have to overcome. All right, next up, now let's talk about an addition that the Packers made to their coaching staff. Finding a new defensive line coach, they are bringing in DeMarcus Covington to fill, again, that defensive line coach. This most recent 2024 season, he was the defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, but he's been in that Patriots organization coaching at the NFL level in some capacity since the 2017 season. While he was a defensive coordinator this most recent year, as you can imagine by the role he's filling, the bulk of his experience coaching at the NFL level comes in working with the defensive line. From 2020 to 2023, he was the New England Patriots defensive line coach. And again, these are just numbers, right? But during that span, the Patriots had a really productive unit in terms of getting after the quarterback, which we all know is a big area where the Green Bay Packers have to improve. In 3 of those 4 seasons where Covington was the New England defensive line coach, the Patriots finished 11th or better in pressure rate among the rest of the NFL. That includes a 5th place finish one year and a 7th place finish the other. Also, in 2 of those 4 years, New England was first in yards per carry allowed, just 3.3 for an entire season, and then 4th in another year. So the production from Covington's defensive line units, very much there. And Drew Wilkins was the now former New England Patriots outside linebackers coach. He said in an interview that he thinks Covington can coach every position, that he's just a really, really smart individual, has the ability to pick up on each of the nuances that come with each of those position groups, and also mentioned his recall, right? Talking about putting together game plans, how they want to attack certain opponents, and Covington sitting there talking about a blitz that they ran during the 2022 season and how that could fit in this week's game plan. So a little bit of insight there into the type of coach that the Packers are getting. But again, the units that he was in charge of with the New England Patriots, a group that performed at a very high level. And as we all know, this is a position group that has to improve for the Packers. The ceiling for this Packers defense, I believe, is going to be defined by, again, how good can this group be as a whole? Going to be defined by the defensive line, specifically how consistently, how effective are they at getting after the quarterback. And while we saw strides made by the Packers defense this season, if they're going to take that next step, what they have to do is improve their pass rush moving forward. Again, they finished top 10, I think 10th in sacks overall this season. Again, they were in the middle of pack pressure rate-wise, but it was very feast or famine, right? It was taking advantage of lesser opponents, but struggling against the good teams, struggling against the Minnesotas, the Detroits. And as we mentioned when talking about the linebacker position, the blitzes, the simulated pressures, those helped inflate those numbers, helped drum up some much-needed pressures. But I think an accurate evaluation of the Packers' defensive front, specifically when it comes to getting after the quarterback, was ESPN's pass rush win rate metric. In short, how often are you winning your one-on-one matchups as a pass rusher? Packers ranked 26 in that regard. So again, we all know that's a big area where they're going to have to improve upon this season. And again, it's going to, how much they improve is ultimately going to determine their ceiling. Because while we saw Green Bay was able to slow the run, if you can't get after the quarterback consistently, that doesn't allow you to take advantage of what comes with slowing the run. When you slow the run, when you contain a running game, you put the offense behind the sticks. They're in obvious passing situations. As a defensive front, you should be able to pin your ears back. Coverage-wise, you should have the advantage in the secondary. But that gets nullified if the quarterback, if the offense has consistently 3-4 seconds to sit back there, evaluate what's going on, and find someone who's open. That is just such a huge stressor on the secondary, on the defensive backs to have to cover for that long. So again, this is an area where the Packers, we all know, have to get better in. And again, Covington's track record with the Patriots, an impressive one. All right, lastly, we talked about Campanile leaving. We talked about Covington being added to the Packers coaching staff. Now let's talk about a promotion. With Tom Clements retiring this season, the quarterback's coach position is open for the Packers, and they are promoting Sean Mannion to that role. Now, before we get into Mannion here, what a legacy that Tom Clements leaves behind with the Green Bay Packers, right? And the ripple effect of that throughout the NFL. Got his start with Green Bay back in 2006. Brett Favre was the quarterback, was a part of this Packers team organization as Aaron Rodgers transitioned from being the backup to the starter, and then returned to Green Bay in 2022 for Rodgers last year with the Packers, and then helped Jordan Love transition as well from being the backup to being the Packers starter. So what a legacy he leaves behind. And I know LaFleur's referenced this a couple times, but just how much LaFleur has learned from him in his time the last few seasons working with Clements. Again, something that he always refers to. And again, huge legacy left behind by Clements on this Packers team. But transitioning to Mannion, he was hired a year ago to be an offensive assistant. LaFleur said he was primarily going to work with the quarterbacks. And again, at the time, it felt like LaFleur was preparing for this, right? We knew Tom Clements was getting closer to the end of his coaching career. We didn't know if it was going to be this offseason, next offseason, what that timeline looked like a year ago. but you knew it was getting closer to the end. So this felt like bringing Mannion on was a way to have an in-house option available to the Packers for when this time came, and it happened to be this offseason. But Mannion was a former third-round pick by the Rams in 2015, and he played all the way up until the 2023 season. So he went right from being an NFL player himself to coaching with the Green Bay Packers. And he even had one of those years in 2018 when he was Jared Goff's backup with the Rams. That was the year Matt LaFleur was with the Rams out in LA as their offensive coordinator. So the two had a little bit of history together, and LaFleur even mentioned that during the 2023 season, when the Packers were facing Mannion, that the two were talking. Mannion mentioned that he was thinking about getting into coaching, and LaFleur said, hey, when that time comes, give me a call, let me know. Because LaFleur said he always respected how Mannion went about his work on a daily basis, his preparation on a weekly basis. Just really liked what he saw from him that season when he was Jared Goff's backup. So again, LaFleur's had his eyes on Mannion for a little bit now, and so it always felt like this was the path, this was the trajectory that Green Bay and Mannion were on, and now he's going to be Jordan Love's quarterback coach. And we already know what one of the items on the off-season to-do list, or going into 2025, what that to-do list is going to be for Mannion and Love, because Matt LaFleur talked about it during the season-ending press conference. One of the big things he wants Love to focus on is his footwork. That's going to be a key element for Love going into the 2025 season. Obviously, Mannion's going to play an important role in helping him iron that out. I think just finding more consistency with it. And the footwork is obviously it's the foundation for where the quarterback success comes from, right? That's where your accuracy starts. That's where your power comes from as a passer. And it's more than just the steps. It's about executing the right drop to ensure timely throws. It's maintaining balance. It's making sure that your feet are in constant motion, that there's a synchronized movement between your feet and your eyes as you're going through your progression. And if just one of those elements is thrown off, it can lead to a missed throw. It can disrupt the timing of a play. There's just a massive trickle-down effect. It can zap some of your power. There's just a massive trickle-down effect that comes from, again, improper footwork and the result that it has on a quarterback's throw. So that's where a lot of success for these passers start. And LaFleur mentioned the Eagles game specifically in the playoffs, that there were certain drops where Love's footwork got a little bit loose, where the timing, the rhythm of the passing play, again, just wasn't in sync. And especially on, as LaFleur mentioned, some of those quick passes where the ball just, quick drop, ball has to come out. Those plays in particular, ones where Jordan Love's footwork has to get cleaned up a little bit. And that game also wasn't the first time where Love ran into those issues, particularly early on in the year. We saw Love's footwork getting a little bit loose, and we can, I think, to a degree, contribute the injuries to that. Again, if we're talking about footwork, the lower body performance of a quarterback, you have a knee injury, you have a groin injury, that's going to hamper it. But I think a big part of it as well was all of his practice time, right? He was a limited participant. There were practices where Love didn't participate, and I think some of those core fundamentals, technique, started to get out of whack a little bit. So that's going to be a big area of emphasis for Jordan Love, and obviously Sean Mannion, now being the quarterback's coach, can have a really, really big role in helping Love iron that element out and really find the consistency behind it. All right, my friends, if you've made it this far in the video, you might as well hit like, you might as well hit subscribe. I do greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. Find all my work, including these articles, over at ESPNLacrosse.com, and download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app. Till next time, friends, take care.